Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an angel therapy practitioner, Reiki master, intuitive guide and empowerment coach, and I'm here with this month's heavenly horoscopes, December 2020, and it is a big month. We have 3 events which I'm going to focus in on before I do the monthly readings. And these readings are going to be focused in on your sun sign. Most everybody knows their sun sign. It's the date you were born. This is the part of the birth chart, the part of your astrological dynamic that represents the I am. It's your identity. It's how you shine your light out into the world. But before I begin, I want to start first off with, we are in eclipse season. We are going to have this coming Monday. Today is actually Saturday, November 28th. And on Monday, November 30th, on this side, the west side of the world, if you're on the east side of the globe, it will be December 1st. We're going to have a partial full moon lunar eclipse in Gemini. And then 2 weeks later, on December 14th, we'll be having a new moon solar eclipse, total solar eclipse in Sagittarius. And then a week later, we will have the winter solstice, where we will have the planets Saturn and Jupiter, what they call conjunct. They'll be sitting at the same degree, 0 degrees Aquarius. All of these energies are going to set the landscape for not only December 2020, but moving forward into 2021. So let me break this down for you. The partial lunar eclipse is in the sign of Gemini. Gemini rules our everyday activities. It rules our thinking process, our speaking, our teaching. It rules literally walking down the street, walking on sidewalks, escalators, going to work and back. It represents our siblings. It represents the monkey mind. That's kind of how I want to put it, that involuntary chatter that goes on underneath it all. This eclipse is in a full moon. Full moons are the culmination of a cycle. It's really the end of something, so the birth of something else can begin. And I think about the dynamics of 2020 having so many rare astrological aspects and events. And here we have these eclipses rounding out 2020 in the sign of our thought process. So what about this full moon can we bring to conclusion? What thoughts can we look at and identify as old thoughts that are based on old dynamics that we have evolved past, and then allowing those to come to culmination? And it isn't about trying to exterminate them or release them or, eradicate them from your life, as much as your willingness to be conscious of them. Because 2 weeks later, we have a new moon, total solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius and Gemini are on opposite sides of the zodiac, the wheel. And in doing so, they have a conversation with each other by nature. So Gemini will rule our everyday thinking, where Sagittarius will rule bigger thoughts, our beliefs. It rules higher education. It rules learning, the abstract mind. It rules our philosophical beliefs, our religious beliefs. It rules wealth, and it rules expansion. All of these are also represented by the planet Jupiter, which I'm going to bring up in a minute, because Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. And when the new moon eclipse happens on December 14th in the west, probably December 15th on the east side of the globe, we're going to see an opportunity for new beliefs to start to be implemented within our everyday activities. And in doing so, a recognition of our monkey mind, but without the judgment attached to it, just the habit that it has created. The mind is a muscle. And while we believe that we think and create our thoughts, many of our thoughts are branded on our brains. And so with our consciousness, we can start to evaluate whether that thought is actually serving us. And in doing so, start to write a new story for our lives. Which now leads me to the biggest event with the most long-term influence, which is the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which means two planets sitting within 1 degree of each other. And this happens to be at 0 degrees on the winter solstice, December 21st, 2020. Jupiter represents our higher mind, our beliefs, wealth, expansion, and Saturn rules conformity. It rules organizations, authority, government. It rules boundaries. It rules discipline. It rules stoic behaviors. So getting a job done because it's expected of you versus getting a job done because you want to. These two planets are going to move into Aquarius. Aquarius by nature rules the 11th house. The 11th house rules networks of people. It rules systems of structure, like the nervous system. It rules social media in some ways, as does Gemini, but it's large systems, social networks. And it also rules our hopes and our dreams and the visions we have for ourselves. This house is ruled by a planet called Uranus in modern times. And I'll come to that hopefully in a minute I hope I don't forget. But the reason I want to bring that up is because Saturn is the ancient ruler of Aquarius. So here we're going to look at our hopes and our dreams and our visions of ourselves and start to really evaluate if they are in alignment with our current beliefs, and if our current beliefs are based on our current situation, or whether we are operating in a stoic way or a habitual way rather than the way that we would like to. Aquarius is sort of a 3-part system in the sense of first we sort of identify who we are in the world. Being ruled by modern day Uranus, many people who are Aquarius ruled or Aquarius influenced will feel like oddballs, weirdos, a little bit like, outcasts in some ways, alien in their own life. And yet at the same time, it represents being in touch with a newer version of yourself, something that is alien to you. And then as you integrate that uniqueness and come to a certain amount of, I want to say acceptance, but not in a way that is defeating, but rather empowering. You come to the idea back into the collective, humanity, the systems, in a new version of yourself, which allows other people a new version of themselves, their unique expression, their independence, their creativity, I guess I want to say, because I think everything is a creative in some way. So in the month of December 2020, we have this first event that starts the month off, which is really going to ask us to look at how we think. How many actions are we taking in our everyday lives based on an old pattern of thought? And then as we identify those old patterns, 2 weeks later, we have an opportunity with this solar eclipse to re-identify ourselves with what we want to be in the world, a higher version of ourselves, to start to implement foreign beliefs or what may appear to be foreign beliefs. I win. I can do this. The universe is supporting me. And then on the winter solstice, which I think is interesting because we think of the winter as the season of the cold, the season where things die in order to be reborn. Well, here we have the planet of beliefs and the planet of stoic, old, restrictive limitations coming together on the winter solstice. So we can sit and really reevaluate and plan for as the spring comes, because Jupiter moves faster than Saturn. Saturn will be in Aquarius for 2 years. Jupiter will be in for 1 year, approximately. There's retrogrades. So the planet of beliefs is going to go over and then surpass the planet of limitations, restrictions, and old Stoic authority and organizations. So there's this opportunity for us all to move past what was and to rewrite what will be. And if we surrender to the dynamics of 2020, I'm sorry to think I was saying 19 something, then we can make sense of what all of this disruption has meant. And I've been saying for a year now that this disruption is the doorway to our dreams. So on December 21st, 2020, Jupiter and Saturn will be at 0 degrees Aquarius. 0 is like the birth thereof, the most naive, the most innocent, and the most hopeful, I think, degree as it moves through this house. So I believe that you'll start to see people, experiences that will anchor in this new belief in yourself. There will be an opportunity for spirit to bring in networks of people, like-minded thoughts. And it doesn't mean you have to agree on it. It's just the agreement that we all get to express ourselves in our individual ways. And this is ultimately ushering in the age of Aquarius. So if we think of the moon representing our emotions and the sun representing the light that we shine into the world, the full moon, the culmination of our lunar eclipse emotions that don't serve us in our everyday life, Gemini, get to be looked at consciously, and rather than judged and criticized, we can let them sit in their proper place as part of the structure that moves us into this new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, allowing us an opportunity to go into a foreign land in our mind, of being able to create, to being influential enough, to being smart enough, to being educated enough, to having enough belief and confidence in ourselves. And then we walk into this this conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter that will have a very strong effect for the next year, minimum. And the eclipses have a 6th-month influence. So this is really taking us all the way into 2021, offering us new social orders, offering us new unique expressions, offering our everyday lives to look more fruitful and more abundant than they have. And part of that is our willingness to set an intention. And the intention is not to know how it will play out. The intention is to keep our focus on what we want to experience. And in doing so, that sets an invitation to the universe, to source energy, to God and the angels to start to magnetize, bring those experiences to us. So, and this Sagittarius represents the connection to the angelic realm. So every couple of weeks over the next month, there's an opportunity to set an intention for the decade ahead, and to understand that the disruption that 2020 offered was in some ways the demolition in the house of our mind, so that we could build a new foundation and start to build from the ground up the renovated version of where we want to live and where we want to be and what we want to experience in this lifetime. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my angel spreads for your sun signs. I thought that was easiest for my community, since I'm not sure how many of you are astrology based. But you'll be hearing more and more of me talking about astrology, because it really is like the weather. What's happening in the stars influences us. We all know the moon influences the tides. And so in knowing that, we can give life to the idea that all the other planets have their own influence and place in our lives. So I'm going to start with Aries, the first sign of the zodiac wheel, and work my way towards Pisces. If you know your rising sign, I would listen to that first. If you know your moon sign, I would listen to that second. And then third, I would listen to my sun sign, because this is the light we shine out into the world. I believe we really do manifest and create on our emotions. And our emotions are ruled by the moon. And the moon is very influential on our everyday lifetime, our experiences. So let's start with Aries. Here we go. For those of you that are new to my channel, I do use two separate decks. One is Messages from Your Angels by Doreen Virtue. The other is Legend of Avalon by Colette Baron Reed. I'll do a 4-card spread using each deck. The first position represents the foundation, the foundational energy, the platform. The second represents the opportunity and or the obstacle. The third represents the angel's advice for taking advantage of the opportunity or getting around the obstacle. And the final represents the outcome of the month, the energetic platform with which we'll be continuing on. All right, so our first angel for Aries is the angel Omega, representing victory. Bridget is in the opportunity or the obstacle, asking us to take a deeper look. Grace and Antoinette is in the angel's advice, asking us to have compassion. And the final is Archangel Gabriel, that rules our everyday communications. Very interesting, since we have this full moon lunar eclipse. It's in just a few days, which is the sign of Gemini, ruling our everyday activities. Omega is being joined by the cow, which represents nourishment, abundance, asking and receiving. Bridget is ruled by the birth and the rebirth card. Grace and Antoinette is being joined by the protection card. And the final position, Archangel Gabriel, is being joined by the bear. So for my Aries, sun, moon, and rising, Omega is victorious. And then there is the cow, asking and receiving nourishment and abundance. This is the platform. Aries, you're ruled by Mars, and Mars is moving direct now through our sign. I say that because I'm a rising, Aries rising. This is about keeping up the good work. It's about a steady stream. It's about allowing yourself to stay aligned to the deeper truth of your heart, because there is a rebirth that we've all been experiencing. And Mars has been squaring this dynamic between Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto up in Capricorn for quite some time now, at least the last 6 months. And some of you may be familiar with what I'm talking about, but if you're not, it's been very challenging. It's been wanting to move forward and being pulled back, really being sort of put in a washing machine. So now it's time for the birth and the rebirth card to offer you an opportunity to look deeper into what all of that was about, because it's actually served you in a way where if you had tried to move forward, it may have been efforts that were not fruitful, because Grace and Antoinette are the angels of compassion, and there is the protection card. In my work with the angels, next to Jesus and God and love, compassion is right up there. I believe the Holy Spirit in many ways is the keeper of compassion. Compassion is allowing for the flaws and the foibles and the challenges of the human experience, and looking beyond them into a place to seek wisdom. And so as you have compassion for whatever you're looking deeper into, you'll realize that the rebirth that you're about to endeavor will be much more fruitful, because you'll start rewriting the story. This is the Baird. This is my history card. It's the enchantment of storytelling. And here's Archangel Gabriel, which represents communications. I believe for Aries that there is a very strong possibility that you will be much more cognizant and aware of your monkey mind. And rather than being annoyed by it, rather than feeling like, why isn't this going away, you'll have compassion for it and realize that maybe in that cycle of chewing on something, there is an opportunity that you hadn't seen before. And if nothing else, if it is only to display compassion for yourself, it will begin to rewrite that story. So this month of December 2020 for Aries is very, to me, palatable and powerful in that your victory comes as you are compassionate with yourself in writing a new story for yourself. Now remember, writing is not writing a story and the story is done. Writing, and those of you that are writers will know what I'm talking about, is writing and then rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. There's the rebirth and the birth card again. So as you discover more and more deeper truths about yourself that you want to experience, you haven't wasted any time. There is no destination. And that's where I think the beauty lies and where you really start to move your story forward, because it comes from the inside out. All right, let's go on to Taurus. All right. Our first angel for Taurus is Astera. The second is Rosetta. The third is the third is Rochelle, and the final is Maya. In joining Astera is the birth and the rebirth card. Joining Rosetta is the serpent. Joining Rochelle is the lady of the lake. And joining Maya is the frog. Astera says to reach for the stars with your dreams and your desires and not to compromise. And then the birth and the rebirth card is exactly what it sounds like. It is a birth and then a rebirth. Oftentimes when we birth an idea, without realizing it, we're birthing it on fear. We will think, oh, as I get older, I need this, or I need that, and we'll think about things in a way that is to stave off something that we don't want to experience. And I feel like the beginning of this month for Taurus is really an opportunity to look deeper into not what you think you can manifest, not what you think you can experience, but the deeper parts of your heart that are unsure and haven't experienced what you really want. And that's where you will be most powerful with spirit, because in the opportunity obstacle, I have the angel Rosetta, which represents children. It represents parenting, teaching, schooling children, but with a collective, with such a large group of people, I look at it as the inner child. And here's an opportunity for healing and knowledge, the shedding of the skin in a way to play to a more childlike innocence, that you can indeed birth the things of your desires. I'm going here with Astera, because in the angel's advice, I have Rochelle. And Rochelle is saying to honor and follow the guidance of your heart, and that it will take courage. It will take emotional courage. And the Lady of the Lake holds Excalibur, the sword of truth. You can see her hair is blowing, and there's just quite a storm around her. And yet she stays strong in her heart. And this is where the true opportunity lies for a new beginning. And for my Taurus, Maya is the angel of schooling and education. And here is the frog, which really represents cleaning of my house, releasing of emotional baggage. The house in dreams symbolizes the mind, symbolizes where we live in our mind as humans. So you have this birth and this rebirth card in the foundational position, offering you an opportunity to start a new platform with your connection to spirit, not based on what you know in the human experience, but what you want in the human experience. And then your opportunity and also your obstacle, Taurus, because you're going to want to see proof of it. You're going to want to see it in the 3D world. And right now it's not in the 3D world. It's still living in your heart. And that's why it's going to take courage and it's going to take bravery to stand in that energy. But what Spirit is offering you is an education that will then be part of the tapestry, it will weave a very strong cord or rope that you can then hold yourself to and manifest more effectively moving forward. Uranus, the planet of independence, the planet of unique expression, the planet that rules the house of hopes and dreams and desires. It brings things about in unexpected ways, in ways that you can't quite figure out. So as Uranus traverses Taurus for the next, it's been doing it for the last couple of years and will continue for the next few years, this is another opportunity for you to rebirth your life. And your job, in some ways, is to stay in your heart, stay in the joy of it. And as you can identify your mind sort of pinging back to what you know, and then gently walking yourself back into the vision, the future, the opportunity that Spirit has. And then things will start to come into your experience that will anchor that and give you more strength to move forward. And your mind will be calmer. All right, let's go on to Gemini. If you are a Gemini and you study astrology, if you are anywhere near 8 degrees Gemini of any of your personal planets, this eclipse, this first eclipse, the lunar eclipse, is going to have a very strong and powerful effect on you for the next 6 months. So if you, and I didn't say this earlier, but if you don't know your planets, but you know your birth time and your location of birth, you can go on the internet. There's tons of free birth charts for you to look that up. All right, let's go on to Gemini, Sun. All right, our first angel is Fiona. The second is Oceana. The third is Bridget. And the final is Indriel. Fiona is being joined by the butterfly. Oceana is being joined by the queen. Bridget's being joined by the fire fairy, and Indriel's being joined by the horse. So for my Geminis, and I want to point out again, this eclipse is a full moon eclipse. There's an opportunity for a culmination, for a cycle to come to its natural conclusion in order for a new cycle to start. And it is in your sign of everyday activities, which includes siblings, teammates, workmates, children, in the sense of children that are like school age, meaning grammar school, maybe a little bit of middle school. It rules our neighborhoods. It rules our intimate communities. It rules our roadways, our sidewalks, our escalators, everything that has to do with our everyday activities, including communications, emails, social media. I bring all that up because as you start to blossom, connecting with Spirit, Fiona says, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving. And look at her face. She is joyous and excited. And then here's the butterfly. And normally I will think of the butterfly as the caterpillar that's coming out into the, transformed into the butterfly and coming out of the cocoon. But if you look at the butterfly, the word beauty is on it. And I think that's where Spirit wants Gemini to put their focus on the beauty in your life. Because Oceana says to take action, you're in touch with your truth, and to lovingly assert yourself. And then here's the Queen. And I don't think this is about asserting yourself physically out into the world, but emotionally. To emotionally start to give life to the idea that your dreams and desires will be experienced. And your job is not to know how they will be experienced or how they will come into your life, because that is God and the angels' job. Your job is to be able to muse on that. The Queen is a very receptive energy. She represents fertility. And fertility is not just giving birth to children. It's giving birth to all sorts of things. And it also represents friendships. And then in the angel's advice, we have Bridget asking us to look deeper. And then we have the fire fairy about optimism, about creative action. And I feel like if there has been a block in 2020, well, surprise, surprise, not so much. But also, there's been a great focus on the obstacles. There's been a great attention to them. Every day we turn on the television and we hear more about COVID, more people diagnosed, more people crossing over. We hear about, political dynamics and just everything that is disruptive on this planet right now. So it may be very challenging for Gemini to be able to step into that vibration and be focused in on optimism, on good things happening. But that's part of why your ability to say, I don't take action, I receive, then Spirit has so much more ability to change your experience. Because in the final position, we have Indriel, the light worker, and we have the horse. And the horse represents delegating authority and accepting help from another. And in the beginning of the video, I talked about the sun sign representing how you shine your light in the world. And now it's time for you to start to shine your light, Gemini, and trust that Spirit is who you've delegated to. And now your thoughts can start to go in a new direction focusing in on the beauty of what you have and the more beauty that is coming ahead for you. All right, let's go into Cancer. Okay. Get a good shot. All right, our first angel for my Cancers is Rosetta. The second is Serena. The third is Sonia. And the final is Xana. I give it a good shot. All right, joining Rosetta is the restriction card. Joining Serena is the deer. Joining Sonia is the Grail Knight. And joining Xana is the horse. Rosetta represents parenting, teaching, guiding children, and the restriction card here. It's very interesting to me because as I looked at it, I thought to myself, how are my Cancers really allowing themselves to have a childlike innocence? Are you so busy being a guide, being a teacher, being a parent that you've forgotten about your own inner child? These videos that I make are really focused on the individual. And while Cancer rules motherhood, it rules nurturing. I very much feel that this is about nurturing yourself right now, because as you put the mask on yourself, you're much more able to help those around you. Because right now, the deer is representing gentleness and diplomacy, as Serena represents God bringing in the abundance that you need. And when I look at the abundance, I'm not necessarily feeling like this is money right now. It feels more like, we are going into the holidays throughout the world, and many of us are not able to spend the time we would normally spend with our families. Things have been, travel. Where I live in the world, we're under a curfew right now, and it looks like more restriction could potentially be coming ahead. So when I'm talking about Cancers, I feel like this is really about being gentle and diplomatic with yourself as you trust a bigger picture of things. Because in the angel's advice, I have Sonia, which represents a deceased loved one in heaven, and also your team, your angels. And then I have the Grail Knight, which is, to me, really representing Sir Lancelot bowing down to the sword of truth and taking on his responsibility of being the purest of heart, so that Excalibur does not have to cut through the ego. Sort of truth is just. It does not fall on one side or another. So in the final position, we have Xana, the angel of protection. And then we have the horse again. And again, I want to talk about accepting help from another and delegating authority. This particular time, going through these transits, these eclipses, first on the 30th of November here in the West, and then the new moon eclipse in the middle of the month on the 14th, and then the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. I believe for Cancer, the restriction that you've been feeling with the ones that you love, family, the restriction and the grown-up that you've been, rather than allowing your child, inner child out to play, to feel hopeful, to feel excited about the future. I think that through this series of astrological events, your beliefs are going to start to be rewritten. And your intuitive body. Cancer is ruled by the moon. And to me, every lunar event affects Cancer in some way. It may be a very small way, but when your ruling planet is part of the party, so are you. So now, as you turn and say, you know what, I think maybe this year of 2020 has hidden pearls. And my job is to start to focus on what those pearls are, to seek a deeper truth, and to connect with my intuitive body, my vulnerability, my emotions. And as I do, starting to identify where have I restricted myself in a fear-based way? And how can I, as a Cancer, start to identify where fear is false evidence appearing real? And then turn that fear over to spirit so they can give me an experience that opens me up to a more faithful platform with which I take my steps on, knowing I'm protected. Not so much physically, but emotionally and spiritually, and on a soul level. Okay, let's go into our Leos. All right, Leo. Our first angel is Fiona. The second is Xana. The third is Archangel Raphael. And the final is Crystal. While I'm shuffling, for those of you that are Leos, you are, especially those of you that are July-born Leos, you are going to be in opposition to this conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter. Leo is opposite on the wheel, on the zodiac wheel from Aquarius. And so while people probably won't talk about Leo and the influence of that very much on Leo, I do think because there's an opposition that winter solstice, December 21st event will affect you in many ways and give you an urge to want to express yourself even more creatively. All right, let's see what the Spirit has to say for you. Leo, joining Fiona is Merlin. Joining Xana is the Goblin. Joining Archangel Raphael is the Bear, and joining Crystal is the Queen. So Fiona talks about now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving that help and guidance. And then Merlin talks about justice, balance, and alchemy. And Merlin is the grand wizard. Merlin is aligned to the magic that can be had on this planet. And for my Leos, I think that's what you're asking for is magic. I want to start to see more evidence of what I've been asking God and the angels for. And I say that because, and I'm going to jump to the fourth position, Crystal's saying have faith and hope there's more on the horizon that you can't see, and there is the Queen. The Queen represents fertility, but the feminine energy is receptive. And so in order for you to truly experience what Merlin is offering you and what Fiona is offering you, as you see her arms are open, as is the Queen. So this is time to sit in reception and to, in many ways, remember that Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is the king of the zodiac. And the king of the zodiac rules personal pleasure, creativity, romance, birthing of children. And so it's time to start to own that, and in such a way where you're connecting with spirit, with your desires in an open and joyous way. Because right now, Leo, I say this month, in many ways you may be protected from your own ego, because your ego may be going into a story, your story, the story that you've lived up until now. And this is Archangel Raphael offering a physical healing from your story as you recognize where your ego has edged God out. Sometimes we think we want something and we work super hard to get it. And then on closer examination, we realize that what we thought we wanted only served to balance one aspect of our physical human experience, and it throws all the others out of balance. And so I believe for Leo, crystals offering faith and hope, because there's more on the horizon that you can't see. And in many ways, this is Queen card is about truly receiving what you want in a fertile way, not in a way where you have looked at your physical experience and said, okay, I have this much money in the bank, I have this many resources, so the viability of me getting this is that. It's not. Whatever you have in the bank, whatever you have in the way of resources has very little to do with whether or not you get what you want. Your connection to spirit and your ability to sit in the energy of how that feels when you're experiencing it. Say you want to go on a tropical vacation, being able to imagine yourself in that experience, sitting on the beach, enjoying your tropical environment, enjoying your food, enjoying your activities. As you sit there and you watch your emotions start to swell, that becomes the true invitation to spirit, and also becomes where you realize how much focus you've had on what has been, not what could be. All right, awesome possum. Let's go on to our Virgos. All right, Virgo. Our first angel is Sonia. The second is Archangel Raphael. The third is Adriana. And the final is Celeste. Joining Sonia is the birth and the rebirth card. Joining Archangel Raphael is the truth card. Joining Adriana is the Barret. And joining Celeste is the restriction card. Okay, so as I look at this, for my Virgos, the first thing I see is Sonia represents your team of angels, your guides, those that watch over you, those loved ones who have crossed over. And then we have the birth and the rebirth card. And it's interesting to me because when I looked at that, I felt like Virgo is being too practical, to be honest with you, that your guides and your angels are trying to get messages through to you, and you're kind of talking yourself out of getting them. And I say that because Celeste and the restriction card is here. And Celeste for me represents my mind. Celeste will talk about a move to a new home or a new place of employment, bringing in new positive energy. But wherever I am, I think a certain way. I have certain beliefs. So you could put me physically anywhere on the planet. I'm going to take my actions based on those beliefs. So when I look at this spread for my Virgos, this feels very much like it has a lot to do with sixth house things. Sixth house represents our work, and it also represents slavery. And many of us are slaves to our jobs. And so I think that what's happening here is that your team is offering you a rebirth, but part of it is your ability to get down to the truth, your truth, not someone else's truth, not the truth of the bills you have to pay, but rather allowing Archangel Raphael to give you a new experience of illumination. Because Adriana is here in the angel's advice saying she's leading you towards the answers to your prayers. And in doing so, it's about rewriting where you've been. But it's not about rewriting it like it didn't happen. It's about rewriting it in a way where those speed bumps slowed you down if you were moving too fast. They protected you. Where those detours helped you from going over a cliff that you may have inadvertently been heading towards. Because I really think that this is an opportunity to really look at how you think. We have this, I hope you guys watched the beginning of this video because I talked about a lot of astrological dynamics that are going to be influential this month and have influence over the next 6 months to a year. So thinking about Virgo being ruled by Mercury, Mercury ruling our everyday activities and our mind, the way we think, the way we speak, the way we teach. And we teach by the way we allow people to treat us. So for my Virgos, this is truly an opportunity for a rebirth as you allow the communications that your guides and your angels are trying to tell you. They're trying to give you signs. And as you open your mind up to those signs, and as a Virgo, you may want to say, Spirit, give it to me 3 times. 3 times is not a coincidence. And then you start to build this back and forth rhythm. Because I think that what's happening is while Spirit is leading you towards rewriting your history, in order for you to truly write it the way you want to live it, it's about observing it without criticism. It's about being able to see the wisdom of if indeed you had experienced something you wanted at an earlier time, would you have been ready to receive it? Maybe everything is happening in a divine timing. And your job is to allow that divine timing to rewrite the story and give possibilities to new endeavors. And if indeed you are looking for a new job or thinking of moving, I would wait. This month may not be a great month to move that story forward. So if that's coming up, think you're being protected by Spirit from getting into a situation that didn't serve the new story. All right, let's go on to our Libras. And as I'm shuffling, I just want to say for my Libra folks, I'm a Libra sun, all the cardinal signs, which are, if you take the zodiac and you cut it into the 12 pieces, the cardinal signs are the ones that form the 4 squares. So we have Aries in the 1st house, Cancer in the 4th house, we have Libra in the 7th house, and then we have the 10th house of Capricorn. The conjunction and all the planets that were happening in Capricorn were either squaring Libra and Aries or opposing Cancer. So the last 2.5 years has been, in varying degrees, very tense and stressful as it opens you up to breaking old structures and rewriting them. So here we go. All right, Libra. Our first angel is Vanessa. The second is Athena. The third is Xana. And the final is Archangel Michael. Joining Vanessa is the Forgiveness card. Joining Athena is the Raven. Joining Xana is the Serpent. And joining Archangel Michael is the Wind Fairy. All right. Vanessa talks about making our decisions based on faith or fear. And then there's the Forgiveness card. The Forgiveness card for me is an interesting energy because at 61 years old now, I have been asked to be forgiving many, many times in my life. And what has ended up happening is people have asked me to forgive the same thing over and over again. And it became sort of a, I'm hurt and you're not changing your behavior. So what ended up happening is that card shifted to a reconciliation for me. That somehow I could take a challenging experience and turn it into a tool that served me versus an anchor that pulled me down and waved me and kept me in the same place. So Vanessa is an angel that represents faith over fear. Am I going to make my decisions based on faith or fear? And then there's the reconciliation card. I feel like this is really an opportunity for Libras to assimilate, to assess a situation fairly, and in doing so, fall down on the idea that faith is the more stable energy. Because Athena is saying that it's safe for you to lovingly assert yourself. And the Raven represents magic, synchronistic events, and timing. And here it's magic. Because the magic is not miraculous. It's alignment with my faith. And in doing so, I am protected. And I'm able to truly anchor in that knowledge that I'm protected. And my job is to be faithful. And in some ways, the faithfulness is not about giving my power up to some energy out there in the world. It's about my own contract I made with myself. Libra represents contracts. So the soul makes a contract with itself, almost like a syllabus or a agenda in some ways. And so now that you align to that, and this is the timing. 2020 was clearly disruptive, but that disruption is breaking down antiquated structures that no longer serve us. And the fairness comes in having the faith that humanity is evolving to more diplomacy, to more peace, to more Venusian things. Because what Spirit is asking for Libras is to have courage. And the courage is to start to analyze things through faith. Faith for me has become an anchor. It's become something that when I'm in doubt, I ask myself, would I, as a soul, choose to constantly be unhappy on this planet? To constantly put myself in situations that didn't serve my abundance, my nourishment, my enjoyment? No, I don't think so. And in doing so, that helps me step out of my human body and into my soul. And my soul is then served by my human body. And that's where I think Athena comes in. It's now finally the timing is here. When I think about the square aspects that Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto were making to Libra, and are still making to me personally, they're going to go into what's called a trine, which is a harmonious and a peaceful energy, one that works towards my benefit. And while the square is not necessarily meant to pull me under, it is meant to create so much tension that whatever is not truly aligned needs to be reviewed, needs to be looked at and reassessed. So that's what I think is going to happen for Libra in December 2020. a series of eclipses. And if you didn't watch the beginning of the video, please go back and listen to the astrological dynamics, because they're going to be very powerful. They're going to be affecting us all in various ways. And if you look at things from a faith-based place, then the disruption is really just the manure on the garden of harmony and peace that's coming up ahead as we enter the age of Aquarius, and allow for our own individualization to be assimilated into the collective that allows others their individualization. All right, let's go on to Scorpio. Okay, Scorpio, our first angel is Maya. The second is Aurora. The third is Merlina. And the final is Isaiah. Maya is being joined by the disruption card. Aurora is being joined by the wind fairy. Merlina is being joined by the serpent. And Isaiah is being joined by the risk card. All right, Scorpio. It's very interesting to me. I've worked with these decks for decades now. And today, as I'm starting to pull up this card for Maya for Scorpio, I'm just fascinated by what I'm seeing, because I think for the first time, and I almost need a magnifying glass to be honest with you, it almost looks like she's cradling a small child. I mean, literally a newborn infant. I'm not quite sure what this is in her hand. And then I couldn't help but notice this network right here. And that each point, while it looks individual, connects to another point, which creates another connection. All right, this is where I'm going, Scorpio. Maya represents schooling and education. And there's the disruption card. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. Pluto rules death and rebirth. And I think that this represents sort of a newborn energy, that we are all connected, and that disruption actually has an opportunity rather than just destructive energy. That's what I think this is about. And I say that because of the final position. Isaiah saying to give birth to new ideas and new situations. And there's the risk card. The risk card is never obviously a guarantee, because what I believe is happening is that Scorpio, that rules, Scorpio being ruled by Pluto makes you super like a detective. You can see the unseen. You can feel what is not in the material. It represents a Kama Sutra sex, very deep, intimate sex. So I feel like what Scorpio is learning is getting an education, a favorable education about what disruption has to offer. Because in your opportunity or your obstacle is Aurora saying you're flying high right now. Don't descend. That you may threaten others, but soon they'll be inspired by your example. That threat is never a physical threat. It's the thought box. I think that there's the potential that Scorpio and this Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter conjunction that's been going on has completely rewritten how you think about things. And if indeed that has not come into your experience yet, then the eclipses and the final conjunction, I should say final for now, they'll come back together decades from now, I don't think any of us will be alive. Well, I won't. But Jupiter and Saturn are going to offer you an opportunity as well to rewrite your beliefs. So in the angel's advice is Merlina, which represents a bit of confusion, but the confusion is coupled with healing and knowledge, which is interesting because you're going to start to realize that the confusion only happens when you start to think the way everybody else does. When you allow too many people or too many people's opinions into a situation. I really believe that Scorpio is one of the signs that most has to trust their instincts. But before you can trust your instincts, you have to differentiate between what is a fear-based reaction and what is truly the truth, because that's where the risk comes in. And that's where the giving birth to new ideas comes in. And I believe that this is in direct relation to you starting to be able to identify disruptive energies in your life, including your own, including the story that says you don't win, or the story that says it's always going to be like this. It's not. And your focus and your willingness to be accountable for your focus is what will help change your experience. And in doing so, you have such far-reaching tentacles to help change the planet in general. So enjoy your power, Scorpio. Use it wisely. Let's go on to Sagittarius. And Sagittarius, on the 14th, aka the 15th, depending upon where you are in the world, there will be a solar eclipse, new moon eclipse in your sign. This is beautiful. New beginnings. And these new beginnings may not reveal themselves on the day of the eclipse, but up to 6 months afterwards. And your ruling planet, Jupiter, is going to be in conjunction with Saturn, going into Aquarius, the sign of humanity, on the 21st, the winter solstice. Very powerful energies for you. So let's see what Spirit has to say. Your first angel is Merlina. The second is Azure. The third is Archangel Michael. And the final is Archangel Uriel. Sagittarius is a sign of the traveler. Foreign travels, foreign. And when I say foreign, I don't just mean foreign as in other countries, but even foreign ideas, places, things that are different than you. Merlina is being joined by the Queen. Azure is being joined by the Birth and the Rebirth card. Archangel Michael is being joined by the Grail Knight. And Archangel Uriel is being joined by Merlina. I brought up the whole foreign ideas thing because Merlina represents confusion, needing to do more research in many ways. I think it's interesting in that deck that Merlina is also represented as a wizard, almost a female version of the wizard. And I want to offer it this way because I believe that Merlina is magical. And if you're confused, it's because you're not paying attention to your emotions. The moon here. We also have the Queen. The Queen is a receptive feminine energy. The moon rules the feminine. We have 2 eclipses, and all eclipses involve the moon in some way or another. So here we have this new moon and full moon eclipse, and the new moon eclipse is in your sign. So if anything, I think that you may feel confused about your own ability to create magic and if you will indeed receive the things that you want. And I want to say it this way, because in your opportunity, your obstacles, as you're saying, your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have faith and patience and don't force it. Force is a resistant energy. It tells the universe, I have no faith, so I need to push harder. And I think that this is you're having a whole new beginning, Sagittarius. It may be a new beginning in your beliefs, and it may be an actual new beginning in your physical experience, because somewhere along this line, somewhere along this transit of Jupiter and Capricorn, you have found the courage to seek the sacred within yourself. And you've been calling forth this new beginning. So I want to say it this way because I've been saying that disruption is the doorway to our dreams. Much of this transit we've been experiencing between Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto over the last 2 years has been disruptive. We could say coronavirus is disruptive. You could say political elections are disruptive, lots of disruptive energy. And yet that disruption is laying the foundation for something much more palatable and much more aligned to what you want to experience. So Spirit is saying, don't allow yourself to your frustration to subside. Allow Archangel Uriel to calm any frustrations that you may have. Because Merlin now, the male version of Merlina in some ways, is offering alchemy, balance, and justice. This is a karmic card. And I say that because I believe that Sagittarius has done the hard work of believing in yourself. And now it's a continuation of that. And allow for inspired action, meaning to not take action based on because you think you need to move forward, but to rather lay back and let yourself be led forward, to receive inspirations, to look at spirit, to look at the heavens, to look at the heavenly bodies that surround our planet as clues to when is a good time to actually take physical action and when is a time to put intention prior to that physical action. And then to pay attention to what do I really believe about the viability of that intention, because that is the deeper truth that source energy will respond to. And that's where you may be frustrated because you think, I've had a wobble in my energy. It's okay to have the wobble because now in identifying the wobble, you become more solid. And that's the platform moving forward. All right, let's go on to Capricorn. Here we go. Our first angel for Capricorn is Aurora. The second is Archangel Uriel. The third is Maya. And the final is Astera. Aurora has been joined by the Water Fairy. Archangel Uriel is being joined by the Mystery card. Maya is being joined by the Wasp. And Astera is being joined by the Goblin. Okay, a little challenging. I'm not going to say it's not. Capricorn, you're ruled by Saturn. Saturn is referred to as a malefic, challenging, mean little planet, asking us to be disciplined, to do things stoically, to conform, to not be ourselves, but to be what is expected of us. This is the lower vibrations of Saturn. I don't believe Saturn wants to be defined that way anymore. And I want to offer it this way because the foundation for this month is Aurora saying you're flying high right now. Don't descend. You're about to break the box and inspire other people. And it is through your emotional body. It's through your intuitive body. It is something that I believe you've been working on or experiencing and developing over the last 2.5 years, rewriting the structure of who and what you are and how you want to be perceived in the world. And I think that Archangel Uriel represents your choice to be less frustrated, to be less angry. And I say that because Saturn's a rule follower. And the rules were not made up by source energy. The rules were made up by man. And they were made up at times and in historical eras that may not serve what today offers us. When we started working a 40-hour week, did we have access to electricity and technology the way we do now? I don't know. I think part of it was because we had to take advantage of daylight. So I feel like for my Capricorns, You're having an education in your own emotional body and where you harbor anger and frustration and unforgiveness, where you are being the taskmaster. And I don't say that negatively, because I don't think it's necessarily to the outside world, but to yourself. And maybe it's time for you to start to allow yourself to, rather than do things you don't enjoy, do things you do enjoy and apply the same work ethic to that. Because Aster is saying to reach for for your dreams and desires and not to compromise through spirit. And then there's the ego. And I want to say this is about edging God out. And I think that's what may be illuminated in this, over this next month of December for Capricorn. There may be some structures that you really love, personal structures, and they're torn away from you. And at first glance, you're frustrated because there are things that you're used to, things that you count on, and yet they may be things that have been holding you back somehow, things that you have adopted and implemented throughout your life that have expired and actually are keeping you from what Aurora offers, which is to leap off the balcony and to fly. Sort of think of it like that song Defying Gravity from the movie Wicked, or the play, whatever you prefer. Because I believe in my opportunity and or my obstacle is Archangel Uriel offering me a choice. I get to start to look at how I participate in my own frustrations. If you pay attention to the laws of the universe, the law of attraction, the law of allowing, nobody else ever makes us sad. Nobody else ever is responsible for our feelings. It's a knee-jerk human reaction we've learned. You made me feel this way. Not really. Because somebody else may be standing right next to you and not have that feeling. So it's a choice. Hence Capricorn being frustrated. I don't want to be angry anymore. I want to turn that anger and that frustration into something that works for me, that empowers me. And as a Capricorn, am I willing to look at my own ego and to see where it's truly edging out the depths of what I want to experience? It's not about judgment and it's not about criticism. It's assessment, fair assessment, and using the dynamics of both the eclipses and the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. Saturn is your ruling planet, moving into Aquarius, a sign of liberation, freedom, of revolution of your beliefs as represented by Jupiter. You have a whole new opportunity to speak from a different place and then to use the high vibrations of Saturn to work hard and diligently towards what you love. So don't get mad at yourself and do your best to stay in God's version of you, because frustration is only judgment in disguise. I should be here. This should have happened. I should be something else. You're perfect right where you are. And if you're fabulously flawed, you're in even better energy than being perfect. All right, let's go on to our Aquariuses. Aquarius, wow, lots of stuff. We're going to talk about your sign a lot with these two planets coming into play in the sign of individuality, unique expression, revolution, and of networks, social networks, hopes, dreams, aspirations. All right, Aquarius, what does Spirit have to say for you for December 2020? Our first angel is Daniel, the angel of marriage. The second is Vanessa, the angel of faith. The third is Layla, the angel of desires and intentions. And the final is Azure, the angel of your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Don't force it. Now let's see. Daniel's being joined by Merlin. Vanessa's being joined by the Risk card. Layla's being joined by the Water Fairy. And Azure is being joined by the Protection card. All right, so Daniel represents partnership, marriage. And I want to put it this way because some of you may be married, some of you may not, some of you may want to be married, but it's going to represent contracts. Contracts of all sorts to me, seventh house kind of things. So it could be business partnerships as well. Merlin represents balance, justice, and alchemy. And these two energies together, the balance, the justice, the alchemy comes from my willingness to look at my history in partnerships. And I say that because Daniel asks me to come in with a clean slate, to give each partnership its fair, just, new beginning, and to own whatever history I'm bringing into the situation. And when I go into that for Aquarius, this is about faith over fear. And there's the risk card. That could be the history you're bringing into your partnerships. If indeed you're looking for a business partner and you've never found one, or you found one and you end up feeling like you work for that other person, then that's the history you're bringing in. That's the belief you're bringing in. If you are looking for a marriage partner and you have dated nothing but cheaters, beaters, and liars, then if you focus in on cheaters, beaters, and liars, that's part of your energetic law of attraction. So in order for the alchemy to come in order for the justice and the balance, your willingness to rewrite the story. And that is the risk you take, is to have faith that at whatever age you're at, and especially if you're of childbearing years pushing 40 and you're a female and you're flipping out because you haven't met your partner and you want to start those markers, now is the time to start to pull back and say, you know what, maybe my history never had a suitable contender for a business partnership or an intimate partnership, because Spirit is asking you to really go back and to look at your feelings. And when you look at those feelings, Aquarius, really look at what your intentions were and what your desires were. Years ago, I knew a very nice gentleman, or at least he appeared to be nice. And we were not aligned. We didn't have the same interests. We didn't have the same views of life. And yet I had reached a certain age where fear started to grip me. And I turned towards that person and I wanted to make him my partner. And I pushed and pushed and pushed. And it took me a long time before I realized that I didn't really like that person. I wasn't truly in love with them. I just wanted to plug a hole I felt was in me. And they were the most viable person I could see. And so I say this to Aquarius because it's not about judging yourself. It's just you're being protected. That's why I'm saying it. There's the protection card. And as you're saying your desired outcome will happen in the near future, have patience and faith and don't try to force it. If you found that 2020 blew up your life, if you found that 2020 created more disruption than it did desires, dreams, then there's a time for surrender right now, because there's something more coming for you. Your ruling planet Uranus is traversing Taurus, the house of possessions, the house of money, the house of in some ways I call it the house of security, because money, if we don't have it, creates insecurity, but if we have it, creates security. And I feel like Aquarius is about to go through a revolution, to lead the charge through their own lives, their own experiences of what it's going to truly be like for you to live by your own drummer. That's where I'm going. And so Merlin is offering you alchemy and justice as you look at your history in partnerships. And if indeed you want to get married and you're willing to say, you know what? Nobody that I've dated, nobody that I've been with was truly aligned. And that's okay. Because what's exciting is what's ahead of me. And so Spirit, let me describe to you the type of partner I want. A kind person, a compassionate person, a person of means, whatever your story is, Aquarius. And then to take the risk of actually believing that if I express my uniqueness in this regard, and if I feel slightly alien, because you know, Uranus rules aliens, So if you feel alien in this belief, it's okay, because we're rewriting our beliefs right now. And you're being protected as you lead the charge of experiencing those outside of the box beliefs. All right, let's go on to our final sign, Pisces. All right, our first angel for Pisces is Daniel. The second is Francesca. The third is Yvonne. And the final is Isaiah. Daniel is being joined by the birth and the rebirth card. Francesca is being joined by Merlin. Yvonne's being joined by the truth card. And the final, Isaiah is being joined by the Baird. So Daniel represents the angel of marriage and the angel of partnership. In this particular case, I really believe that it's straight up partnership. It may not necessarily be a marriage partner. It could be a business partner. And there's the birth and the rebirth card. So this is where I'm going with this for my Pisces. I believe that you have an opportunity for a rebirth within a partnership. And part of that is your willingness to look at your history in that partnership and your history in partnerships in general. I say that because Daniel, when you look at it, he asks us to come into relationships as clean as we possibly can, to sort of think of our love life as a chalkboard and do our best to erase it. There'll always be remnants of what came before, but it doesn't have to stand out. And I'm really thinking that this is super true for Neptune ruled Pisces. I say that because you're water, and water takes the form of whatever cup it comes into. And you may feel so vulnerable in your loving partnerships because you tend to be the more cooperative element. But I think now is time for you to step up and to be more prominent within that, because in the opportunity and/or the obstacle is Francesca and Merlin. And Francesca talks about visualizing what it is you want. Negativity will block your progress. And Merlin is offering alchemy, justice, and balance. And if indeed in your partnerships you have taken a subservient role, or you've not felt aligned in those partnerships, you may be doing some of the heavy lifting. You may not feel like you're doing any lifting at all, because the truth is that you haven't been able to feel truly vulnerable and safe in your relationships. That's where I'm going with this. I believe that what Daniel is saying is that your history has not provided you with anything to hang your hat on in relationships. And now is a time to really start to give life to maybe you had to get to this place in the journey. Maybe whoever you're to partner with or align with needed to go through certain experiences in order to appreciate your energy once you came together. And for those of you that are in a marriage or in a relationship, I don't think that it's much different. There is the probability and possibility for evolution. But part of it's going to be your willingness to be the one that implements that evolution for yourself, because your willingness to be vulnerable to your truth offers you a new beginning in your story. This is also the enchantment of storytelling. So it represents myths, music, and poetry as well. So for Pisces, you're being offered a rebirth in your partnership sector of life, in how you interact with others and how you feel viable and valued in those relationships. Again, If you didn't watch the beginning of this video, because I'm going to put timestamps for each one of the signs, please go back and check out the information about the eclipses, as well as the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction going into Aquarius. It's going to affect all of us in a very palatable way for the next year to year and a half, for sure. And I think for my Pisces, those of you that want to be married and want to be in a cooperative, loving relationship with another human, it's time to start to focus in that and really give life to a new story. And for you to not look outside of yourself for that story, but to be that story as you walk into the future. The Jupiter and Saturn conjunction is in the zero, as at the 0 degree of Aquarius. So we're going to experience these two planets commingling for a while before Jupiter moves past Saturn. But for a year, they're going to hang out in the same house, the house of hopes, dreams, and desires. Also in the house of networks, the house of social media. So Spirit has a really good platform with which to bring you new experiences to align to a deeper truth that you want. And your job is to set those intentions, to speak of them to Spirit, to believe in them in a way that puts you in the feeling of them, in the intuitive vibration of them. And in doing so, almost like you're anticipating Christmas morning from Spirit. And as we go into this winter season, I know on the east side of the globe, Australia, etc., you're kind of the opposite. But for us, this winter is really offering us sort of this rest, this hibernation from what we have experienced in 2020 as we start to give birth to the spring and what we will want to experience then. So that's what I have for our heavenly horoscopes for December 2020. My name is Teri Hunter, and I want to thank all of you seekers, stargazers, and soul siblings for taking the time to watch my video. Please like, subscribe, and share, and comment. Let me know what you'd like to talk about. I'm also creating, with some others, a Facebook group. We'll talk more about that moving forward. And I'll be back next week with a Pick Your Angel reading, the weekly spreads, where you allow your intuitions to guide you as to which spread is most appropriate for you for the week ahead. In the meantime, enjoy our partial lunar eclipse in Gemini. Set your intentions and allow yourself to feel the universe's support for your endeavors. Again, thank you so much. If you'd like to get a personal reading with me, my information is below in the description. See you next month with January 2021 horoscopes, heavenly horoscopes. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.